All right, what up, what up, what up, what up? It's your boy B-Phil, and today we're going to be talking about AWS Bedrock Agents, Amazon Bedrock Agents. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So we're going to go here. So we see this agents for Amazon Bedrock add support for Anthropic, Claude 3, Haiku, and Sonnet. So Amazon Bedrock is an API that allows you to access LLMs via a simple API. This is the AWS API. And inside of that framework, they have agents. And they recently added support for Claude 3 Haiku. And previously, they only had version 1 instant and version 2 of Claude. But now they have the 3, and this allows or enables much more powerful use cases. So let's go ahead and jump into it, and I'll show you how to navigate to this particular service. So in the search tab at the top of your AWS console, we're going to type in Amazon Bedrock, and we'll see the first option. We want to go ahead and expand this burger menu on the left, and we're going to find agents under orchestration. Now we're going to go ahead and create a new agent. For the sake of this video, I already created one. It's called New Agent. And so on your screen, what you'll see is these agent details. So you'll specify the name, the description, the actual service role. You'll probably do create and use a new service role. And then you want to go ahead and use Claude 3 Haiku. Now, of course, as I mentioned before, you have instant v1 and v2, but we're here, I think, larger context window of Claude Haiku, and just the general intelligence of this model is a lot better than these older models. So we're going to use that. Next, you want to go ahead and provide instructions for the agent. Now, this is a very important part here, and you might see it in this demo, you might not, but ultimately, if you give it very specific instructions, this allows the user to not have to be as verbose in their request. So here you can see you are an agent that accepts YouTube channel link and gets the video titles on that channel. You also have access to add numbers. You're also able to get buckets for an account as well as objects for those folders if requested. Next, what you want to do is you want to specify some particular action group. Now, you can think of these as just a group of things that this agent can do. So maybe you have the suite of arithmetic. Here you see addition actions. Maybe this is just arithmetic actions, and you can add, subtract, and multiply. And you specify those functions within this group. So just think of it like a tool chain. You got your tool belt, you got your wrench, you got your screwdriver, you got your hammer, all on your tool belt, right? It's the same thing with these agents. Give them everything they need to complete a particular task. So today we're going to look at the get buckets and get objects. So let's go ahead and just look under the hood here. And in these get bucket, once you define this particular action group, you can select a particular type, and you either have the function details or the API schema. We'll dive into the function details later, but you can use the open API schema here. And you're going to go ahead and select a Lambda function or create a new one. We'll look at that in just a moment. And then you have this particular API, open API schema. And in this open API schema, you have something like get buckets, and you have some particular HTTP method, get, put, post, things like that. And next, you're just going to go ahead and describe what this actually does. Now, just to be more precise in what I'm going to show you, the get objects, we're going to look at this API schema. And you see this path here, get objects. Now, let's go ahead and look at the actual function itself. Inside of this Lambda function, we define a function where we can get objects, and it's going to take a bucket name, and it's going to call AWS's API and the list objects v2, right? It's going to give it a bucket name, and it's going to return the contents. Now, just think of this as all the files inside of that S3 bucket, or the objects as it's called in S3. The most important part here is this Lambda handler. And when the agent actually calls the Lambda, it's going to pass some events, right? So we're going to go ahead and get these events, and we're going to look at this API path. Now, if you recall in the open API spec, we had a path called get objects. And in that path, we had some variables that were required, specifically the actual bucket name. Let's go ahead and look at that just really quickly. So given a bucket name, get the objects from that bucket. So if we go down a bit further here, we have a schema here that has an object that has properties. And this first property here is bucket name. That's a string, and it's the name of the bucket to get the objects from. It's required. So this is all we're doing here on this particular if statement. And so we get this particular property, we pass it to the function, and we get some result. And then we return that to the agent. And then the agent structures it how we see fit. And this is where the actual instructions that I showed you come into play. and can make, again, less verbosity when the user is actually utilizing this agent. And so you also have the specified output or the response. And so you see here, I'm just giving responding with a bucket object of list, and it's a string and it's a list of bucket objects. So let's just see how this works in action now, yo. So we're gonna go back. We're going to specify the bucket objects, version 7. So let's go ahead and say, give me the largest 5 files from the bucket with the name like data clean. Make sure the size output is formatted in MBs and listed nicely. We're going to run that. So you can think of these as being useful in the case where maybe you have someone onboarding into your application, or you want to go ahead and expose some internal functionality and you want some new users to be able to access some information simply. You create the action groups ahead of time, you expose these interfaces, and of course you can build on top of these Bedrock agents with your own front-end interface. You have the API available to you. But these unlock just simple use cases, maybe even just for onboarding. Just keep it that simple. Now, of course, you can get more complex, and we can talk about that later. But let's go ahead and look at what we got returned here. So we got BP clean, US East, great. This is the actual correct bucket. Then we got 5 outputs. These are the actual largest files in that bucket. And the beauty of Bedrock agents here when you're testing here is you can actually see all of the traces here, which leads me to the next step, which is logging. And how cost effective is this actually? So on the left-hand side here in your Bedrock, Amazon Bedrock console that we're already in, you can go and find settings, and we can enable model invocation logging. And we want to specify CloudWatch logs to output the invocations or just the calls to the Haiku model. So we're going to go ahead and look at that here in CloudWatch logs. And let's get an idea of what this particular query cost. So we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom here. We're going to see, okay, give me the largest 5 files from the bucket with the name like data clean. Make sure the size output is formatted in MBs and listed nicely. Okay, great. So we're going to scroll all the way down to this answer. And we see it was 8,501 and then 495. So 8,501 and 495, right? And so we see that this actual query costs less than a cent. And so when you're thinking about doing something like this becomes more cost effective for these very small use cases where maybe you ahead of time, you haven't orchestrated an entire function that does all of this for you and you haven't tied it to an interface. You can get up and running very quickly with these Bedrock agents to go ahead and utilize LLMs to do it for you. And so hopefully you learned something about this today, and go ahead and share your use cases as you begin to implement these Bedrock agents. So we all know what's possible, right? We want to push these particular implementations to their limits, and we want to really see how far this automation can go. So hopefully you learned something. It's your boy B Phil. I'm out. Peace.